There was a panel of Vidcon of therapists to share their concerns about the sensationalization, which is an insane word.
I had to double check to make sure that was actually a word.
Is.
I'm like, why wouldn't they just say glorification?
Because if sensationalize is a word, that has to be a...
I was like typing it out for the thumbnail, and I'm like, this is too freaking long. I'm not putting this on 2 lines.
Of mental health issues on the internet. Quote from the panel, "I think we've taken the word trigger a little bit too far." You don't say.
Just a tiny bit.
So, like, there are some TikTok therapists. They're kind of grifters. They make a lot of videos giving mental health advice and talking about different diagnoses and the criteria for them. Everyone in the comments is like, oh my gosh, that's literally me, or that's literally the person I know.
The funny thing about this is I used to, like, when I was posting my skating stuff every day, when I would do the audio on version, which was basically me documenting my day and kind of talking about my mental health struggles while doing it, I would tag mental health and mental health awareness in there, and I would get like ads from just the funniest like accounts of like doctors, like, let's talk about this, and I'm just like, you should probably go see an actual doctor. I'm talking about my experience. I'm not telling other people how they should behave, which is very, very different.
Dude, if you're a therapist, business is a booming.
Oh,
for sure,
when you see the percentages in here, it's
like
insane.
some of these chicks have 87 personalities. Like, you could charge each of them as like an individual. It's like, hey, listen, everyone.
Different insurance for each one of them.
Yeah,
keep going. Man.
Yeah. Oh, the percentages are crazy. Over the past 20 years, there was a notable increase in Americans seeking mental health resources from approximately 20% in 2002 to a whopping 41% in 2020.
That is almost half of the entire population of this great country of ours.
And I think it's not just people seeking mental health help, but just in general, like, people who are mentally disturbed, regardless of whether you are seeking help for it, has gone up.
That's the problem. A lot of them is like, it's not like, we've talked at length about how like a therapist, somebody that can actually help you develop a plan to get better is a lot different than just talking about yourself at length for long periods of time.
Right. And like, people being locked in their homes for so long do not have friends and social interaction and interaction with family members as much as they used to.
That 41% was in 2020. So does COVID play a role in that?
Yeah. I mean, of course, like, telehealth makes it like way easier to access talk therapy, I'm sure. And like just things like BetterHelp where you're like texting someone. Yep. That's like nothing. That is not doing anything for anyone. But that's besides the point. Let's talk about TikTok.
With social media. Yeah.
I mean, I remember in the height of lockdown when I originally downloaded the app, I realized that people were getting all of their mannerisms from the videos they were watching.
What do you mean?
Do you remember, like, I don't know if you guys remember this because you're not like of my generation, but like when girls started like doing the underhanded pointing like this. This, like, all over
Mary,
the
I'm
place.
32. No, I don't know what you're talking about.
It literally was a mannerism that, like, all young women
I
began displaying. Like, when they were, like, doing this to emphasize their point.
Why?
I don't know.
I see.
I don't know.
It was like everyone started doing it because if the only interaction you have with other human faces is over your phone,
yep.
Looking at a TikTok, you're going to start imitating what you see.
So do we believe that this is because of a rise in the acceptability of talking about your own mental health struggles? Or is it simply...
It's too acceptable to talk about your mental health struggles.
To people that can't help you.
I mean, yeah, like, because you're sharing just for the sake of seeming vulnerable, like, in a healthy way, but it's not healthy.
If you're not actually like, actively working to get better.
So, like, another thing, they spoke on topics like what was it? Like,
imposter syndrome rings true with
Tourette's.
Me. Like, we got a whole article.
Tourette's is on the rise in young girls.
We've got this article right here where it says...
But it's not... They're saying it's on the rise not based off diagnoses, but people being... like self-diagnosed.
This is I've got this list here of the dangerous trends that come from TikTok, and the reason I want to talk about this is mainly because, like, if we're doing pop culture right now in society, you could argue that influencers and content creators are far more influential than any celebrity.
Well,
by far.
Yeah, and like on on TikTok, in order to be successful, you have to pick your niche, stick to it, and not veer off from it.
Yep.
If your niche is your mental health issue, in order to get views, that is what all of your videos have to be about.
Self-diagnosing is a huge one in this one, where they talk about like, where it's like, I went to a doctor and thought I had Asperger's, and he said no, and I was like, but I do. And then they just say that they do, and then that like they're self-diagnosed. Don't let a doctor tell you don't have something. You know your body better than a doctor does. I'm like, but do you have 12 years of medical?
There was that.
You can choose your gender, you can choose your species, and you can choose your mental state. Like
Tourette's and dissociative identity disorder were a few that have just been like blown up as a trend on TikTok.
And how could you confirm Tourette's? Because you're an edgy girl that likes to say the F word. Like, what's going on?
Is it Billie Eilish that has Tourette's?
She does, yeah. She most of her tics are like facial tics.
Yeah. And that's a big thing in these articles where they talk about girls are seeking medical help from a mysterious tics that might be from TikTok, which, the irony there is.
Right.
TikTok
the irony in there is just palpable.
Maybe this is like all just a psyop.
It's all China just being like, we are going to give you guys tics and we're going to distract you with nonsense that you do not need to be talking about.
But does this mean like Gen X girls are all Gen Z girls are all a hive mind?
Yes.
I mean, the more technology closes in on us, hive mind becomes
young
more
women
and more
have
common.
always been easily impressionable. Like, that's why they chose certain stars to like Elvis, for example. He was like an entire craze because young women like to feel that they're a part of something and like they share something in common, and that's cool and everything. But when it's pathology, that's an entirely different situation.
The funny thing is, it'd be one thing if they were doing this for money, but the way TikTok works, but the way TikTok works is that if you have millions upon millions of fans and views, you make $1,000 a month.
It is not a lucrative app.
It's a pool of money that everyone draws from.
Yeah, but they use it to build a platform elsewhere, whether that's
exactly.
OnlyFans mental health sector, as we know. That's they tried to when they were going to go non-porn. That was that's what they were going to do, is focus on other stuff like that. But also they can do that whether they have merch, whether they have they do appearances. I imagine that if you talk a lot about your mental health, you could be hired to do speaking engagements down the line, if you're influential enough. So depending on how business-minded that content creator it is. But it's just, is it good for us to be this open about these issues? And I worry about that. Because like I said, I was reading a tweet the other day, a tweet that was posted on Instagram where a guy's like, I said something and my therapist just sat back in his seat and wrote, shaking his head, did I win? Did I beat therapy? That mindset is evil. That's not the mindset you're supposed to have in these situations, and you're not helping anyone by glorifying something like that. So, and then up here, so it says, the statistics, okay, so it says, when asked how much of truth there was to this, they're talking about if social media is to blame for the tic-like behavior in teen girls. It says the part of that is on the rise in diagnosis to an increase in access to therapy. So people have, like you said, more access to therapy because of things like better health, all the other ways you can do it without ever actually going.
There are so many therapy practices who switched to doing remote therapy during the pandemic.
And doesn't going there in person play a huge role? I mean, I know that for me, going in person played a huge role in my ability to get help.
Because it means you're actually putting effort into it, and you're making a personal connection with the therapist,
which you cannot do digitally. Yeah. You just can't. It says so. There's a decrease in stigma around it over the past 20 years. There was a notable increase in Americans seeking mental health resources. That was the number we talked about earlier. It says, but then they get into talking about content creators, and they say they're not immune to the pressures of social media. They share their experiences with imposter syndrome, or the feeling of doubt surrounding your abilities and achievements. That's very common amongst people. What was that? Just recently, Jennifer Lopez was it was either Jennifer Lopez or Shakira was talking talking about how they had imposter syndrome like their whole career. And like, can you imagine being that famous, that successful for that many years and still feeling that way? Like now imagine being somebody like in the early days of your career. You almost have to be brazen, bold, and like unafraid of looking stupid. Because if a very famous, very successful person can feel like an imposter 20 years in, somebody who's just starting out is obviously going to have to counter that
but
somehow.
I mean, the issue with what these influencers are doing is they're promoting the idea that any normal human feeling or like negative feeling is a syndrome, is a pathology, disease of some kind.
They always want to pathologize it. Always.
Yeah.
Also, I want to know, trigger warnings, good or bad?
Oh gosh.
I need to know, good or bad?
Well, it used to be something that I think it's a bad thing. I think
toughen up, dude. Like, the
there's
worst...
always like discretion advised, right? Like there was always also like a system of ratings that was like normal, but now we're using them to the detriment of actually saying anything.
And then people don't join the conversation because they've been warned off at the beginning. You can't build up. It's like a callus. You can't build up that callus without repeated exposure. You need to
no
build
one is
up.
responsible for what bothers you.
Yes,
your personal issues.
Yep.
So the thing is, like, trigger warnings are now taken to the level where like law school students get trigger warnings before doing case study, and it's like, dude, you signed up to do like law and criminology, and you don't have the stomach to like read the clients that you're gonna defend. Like, imagine like getting assigned a lawyer, and it's like a case about something that I can't say, and like your lawyer's like, actually, this is very triggering and concerning for me. I must leave immediately.
That's like when we
what
this weekend when I was wading through all the crap about Roe v. Wade from annoying celebrities saying annoying things that are annoying. Like, that annoys me, and I find it kind of bothersome and tiresome, but I don't expect them to be like, trigger warning, if you have strong feelings on this topic, you should not read further. You just go ahead and read, and you repeat it, and repeated exposure will help you kind of deal with the fact that it's unpleasant to begin with. I'm the same way with, like, I hate cringe videos. I despise like,
I love cringe.
I cannot stand cringe videos, but you have to learn to, like, grit through the cringe if you're going to watch some of this. Like, we're going to watch the Oliver Tree video in Podluck. Like, stuff like that. I guess that one doesn't really bother me, but like stuff like that sometimes. Like, or even the Chet Hanks interview with, what's her name? Where I'm just
that was even like edited in a deceptive way to make it more cringy than it was. They like acted like there were so many silent, like, moments of silent pause.
And she still looked like a schmo. She was like,
still made her look stupid.
Are you gonna apologize? He was like, nope.
Yeah.
Based.
So do you think most of the tick? I mean, the part about ticks, like you said earlier, like hand motions like that, absolutely. From like,
I mean, that's not even like a tick. That's just like a mannerism. But if you add that with like ways, it's like a dialect. It's like the way people start speaking when they don't talk to anyone outside of that bubble.
In the movie The Dark Knight, when the Joker is constantly licking his lips and everyone thought it was a choice that Heath Ledger was making to make himself look more nuts, it was actually because the makeup dried his lips out so much that he had to keep doing that to like keep his mouth from going dry. And then David Tennant like copied it in like a Harry Potter movie without realizing that it wasn't done to make him look nuts. It was just something the actor had to do. And I'm thinking if something like that can translate from one actor to another, think about how much more powerful and present social media is in your life each and every day.
The overall point that I wanted to make is just that there's nothing that's more wrong with us. There's something wrong that's being imposed on us. There's nothing wrong with us.
Jonathan Haidt has some great research and videos talking about how the younger generation of women have been absolutely decimated by social media and what it's doing to their mental health. And that's due to exposure to social media. I recommend anybody who is to go look up some of those videos that are on YouTube where he talks about just they're sad, like they're more upset than they've ever been. They're sadder than they've ever been. And it's not going away because you can't get rid of social media now. So,
it's really just not fair to frame it in a way that's like, we're more mentally ill than ever.
Yeah.
When
we
that's
are.
not. I mean, but it depends on what you're saying. Like, are we displaying maladaptive behavior traits, or are there maladaptive expectations being set on us. I don't know.
Well, and also it's one of those things where now I think in a world where people just want to feel special, they feel like having a condition makes them special. You know what I mean? Think about how much we evangelize and like talk about how brave people are when they survive something, and people who aren't going through anything now want to and they talk about here about like faking conditions because they want to feel like they're special. Like everyone wants to feel that way, right? And if if you're being babysat by social media, it's going to affect your ability to think reasonably. So there's like some of these other conditions when they're talking about like the most dangerous aspects. It's self-diagnosing, using intermittent fasting to heal anxiety, pretending to have a disorder, what I eat in a day videos.
Those are insane.
And then here's the other one, discussing trauma. There is such a thing. Maybe I'll link that clownfish video in there. There is such a thing as not productively discussing these things, where you're going around in circles and you're not actually getting to any truth.
Well, it's like who has the most shocking story that will get them the most attention.
Yeah, they want to one-up each other rather than actually help each other. Like
basically, TikTok is just a digital insane asylum.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, to be frank, right?
Yeah.
All right, super chats.
Bad App said, back in the MySpace days, every girl had pigeon toes. Is this true?
The hell does that mean?
I don't know what that means.
It means your feet are pointed inwards at each other.
Probably from standing to take your pictures a certain way with your undercut and your very, very heavily contrasted photo and your really bad HTML.
We're
bring me back to the. See, what we need to get Tom to buy
MySpace World.
If we need to get
can Tom buy Gab?
Tom could buy Tom like, when he cashed out. I believe he cashed out for millions and just became like a travel photographer.
Can Tom buy Truth Social?
That'd be great. Him and Trump just hang out.
Caper2X said, as an RN nurse, that sounds like CYA. What does that mean?
I don't know what that means. She would
after causing it in the first place. We are now reaping the results, and they may fear the repercussions.
I'm terrified to think of like. I wonder if maybe we've overblown parts of it because of how much of a hassle, like how many problems lockdown and 2 years of COVID restrictions did to people. Like if we're in a particularly dark time because of just how bad it was of people being locked in their house, both by government and through fear, like self-imposed locking themselves in their houses and stuff like that. And like you're dealing
even if
with
that had only lasted 5 weeks, like we thought,
yeah,
that would still be an unforgettable 5 weeks that leave like permanent effects.
Yep.
Anyway, Vanguard N7E335 said, been saying for months now that TikTok is causing people to develop mental disorders, and the amount of people claiming to have autism or ADHD is massive.
This is true. Okay. I was one of the hardest things to do at this job when I got sober was going off my ADHD meds. Was realizing how many people, like, there's a huge difference between people being like, oh, I'm like, they can't like sit still for a few minutes. They're like, I have ADHD. Or even worse, it's like, it does feel like people want to talk about how they have Asperger's because they think it makes them seem unique and special, not because they actually have the condition. You know what I'm saying? Like they feel like it makes them unique or special.
And that's a totally normal human impulse.
To think.
But when you...
That isn't.
Maybe to think that it would make you special. It's a whole other thing to actually do.
To want to feel like you're unique and special, because in some ways everyone is.
Yes.
But the way that you naturally would come to find that validation is by having personal connections, and when that's taken away from you, this is where you turn.
So do we have to worry about a whole nother generation of like influencers and social media people, and even regular celebrities now talk about how the trauma of this incident, the trauma of this experience on this movie set, doing this and that. It's the most overused term in all of Hollywood now is the word trauma, which I feel bad for saying.
Because we're like inundated by the slog of life. Like it does. Life is sucking right now. Yep. And we don't know how to express that beyond like finding some minor inconvenience and calling it trauma. When
exactly.
daily life all added up together is a massive weight.
But I do love the meme that, thank you. I do love the meme that says like morning people, and it shows people like getting up to jog. It says me just processing the trauma of waking up. Like I felt that in my soul, because there was like, as a night owl, like maybe that's not the right word for it, but I definitely felt the truth of behind like just waking up.
Just the prolonged pain that is life, and especially
exactly
modern life. It is like a massive weight on our shoulders. It's just we pick out these tiny things to call trauma.
And if you can, like, I know it's not a reasonable thing to ask most people, but whether you create content or not, try to go like a weekend without your phone, and you will be it's insane how much better you feel, how much better you sleep, how much happier you are. And then you come back and you're just right back into it, and you're like, I can't live without this during the week. Where, you know, whether it's because you need your phone to connect with people, it is almost kind of like a digital prison in a way.
Listen, you need to curate your socials very well. Like I by the way, I have to live in socials because of the nature of my job.
Yeah.
But like even I make sure that at least one of my socials is just memes and puppies.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Which one is it?
My Instagram.
I know it's not Twitter.
It's like memes, puppies, and recipes.
Almost everything I post is just memes. It's just, it's there was I posted a meme today, or no, yesterday. It says it's like a girl in like a tube top, and she goes, who said girls with depression can't wear tube tops? And a guy responds and says, no one has ever said that. That nobody's ever said that in the history of the world.
Like, what is the correlation?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's the joke, though. That's why it's hilarious.
All right.
Joseph said schizophrenia is a mental health issue. Being sad is not.
And there's also a strong line to like, where does depression start and just being sad end, right? Like, and a lot of people have trouble making that connection. I've had people here who have asked me like, you doing okay? Because I'm kind of like I live in like a weird neutral tone most of the time, and I can go up and down a little bit, but they're like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I feel fine. But like, where does having a bad couple of days end and depression start? The problem is they're self-diagnosing, or they're diagnosing on Instagram or TikTok, and they're not actually going to see a medical health professional. And a lot of times, depending on what condition you want to have, the person you go to see often kind of makes that happen, right? If you see a therapist, is different than going to see a psychologist for targeted treatment and stuff like that. So
yeah.
And there's one more there.
Bad Off said, would you rather get a mental illness from TikTok or an STD from Tinder?
Well,
how about neither?
How about an STD from TikTok and a mental illness from Tinder?
Can we just not have any of it?
Or just none of them? I would prefer neither.
Nothing?
Pass.
Dane, which one? You had to pick.
Pass.
You have to pick one.
Like not STD then.
Okay, perfect. There you go. A new one came in.
Said, Bad App, I'd rather not do either. Yeah, thank you for that. Also, another
a voice of reason.
Said, Mary, the only way life is hard today is if we make it difficult. That is why we pick the smallest, weirdest leap to be triggered by. I kind of don't agree. I don't agree. I think modern life is extremely hard.
Can you explain?
Well, it's not like it's uncomfortable. I mean, it's mentally difficult to live in a way that's like this far from what we were naturally designed for. So
I talk about that a lot, where I'm like, look, like getting in a fight now is a lot different than being like kind of tortured by social media. Like if you're getting bullied online, as much as I hate that concept, and you don't know how to turn it off or ignore it, like that's omnipresent in your life. That those mean comments, that mean stuff. Like I said, it's still your responsibility to handle that. So don't misinterpret what I'm saying as saying like that it's not their fault. What I'm saying, if you have to put up with that each and every day, that's a lot different than the courage you need to get into a fight for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Is a lot different than the courage you need to face down reading negative stuff about you. And believe you me, whether you think it affects you or not, it oftentimes does. It's a lot different than having to read that all the time.
We were designed to say pejoratives on Xbox Live. Let us continue.
Well, if anything, that's an outlet for like what we feel we need.
Yeah.
And it's
Sandwiches?
being taken away from us. So
all right,
it's just unfortunate.
All right.
Sorry, we went a little long with that, but things needed to be said, and they were said.
I think that's
yes,
something
Queen.
that's... Yes, Queen Slay?
Yes.
Did you just girl boss that segment?
I just slayed that.
Slay.
I just slayed those super chats.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.